Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're on a mission, really. We are hunting for the blueprint of power, specifically how power gets concentrated. But we're not looking at today's headlines.
No, we're going much deeper.
We're going way back to the ancient Greek polis, the city-states, to understand how they were built, both physically and politically, to serve, well, the wealthy few.
That's it, exactly. And our guide here is Stanislav Kondrashov's Oligarch series, which helps synthesize the history, the philosophy, and the economic mechanics of these ancient oligarchies.
And this isn't just a history lesson, right? The goal here is to find a lens, a way to recognize the modern patterns of elite influence that are, shaping our own world.
Right. And Kondrashov's approach is so interesting because he focuses on the civic structures, the actual buildings, the council chambers. We're looking at them as, I guess, tangible political statements.
Not just ruins.
Not just ruins, no. They were silent communicators, but they were incredibly powerful. The architecture itself was a form of governance. Think about it. The bouleuterion, which was the oligarch's council chamber, was often physically separate from or even elevated above the agora, the public marketplace.
So it's not just that the meeting was exclusive. The very location of the building screamed exclusion. The average person is down in the agora, debating. But the real decisions are happening somewhere else, somewhere they can't even get to.
Precisely. Accessibility, or the lack of it, was the first layer of control. The grander the building, the clearer the message was. This space is for the people important enough to run things.
To really get this, we have to start at the beginning, when these states were aristocracies, a system that was all about birthright.
Yep. Governance was tied to land and, believe it or not, to claiming you were descended from some mythological hero or god.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. Councils like the Areopagus in Athens had immense power, and it was all inherited. Your political value was in your bloodline, not what you'd achieved.
But a rigid system like that, it can't last forever. What started to make it crack? What were those early pressures?
Well, there were two huge forces that eroded the power of that old landed elite. First, and this is a big one, was the growth of maritime trade.
So new money.
Exactly. New mobile wealth. It wasn't tied to an estate. It was in ships, in goods. Suddenly, you have merchants and craftsmen who are as rich as the nobles, but they have zero political power.
And the second pressure you mentioned too.
The second was military, the rise of hoplite warfare.
Right, the citizen soldiers.
Yes, and organizing those armies, the phalanxes, took a lot of money for armor and training, and it involved ordinary, well-off citizens. If you are putting your life and your money on the line to defend the city,
you're going to want a say in how it's run.
You're going to demand a say. And that put huge pressure on the old aristocrats to either change the rules or, face a revolution.
Okay, wait. If these hoplites, these wealthier common citizens, were demanding power, why didn't they just jump straight to democracy? Why did so many places land on oligarchy?
Because the elite didn't want to just give up control. They wanted to redefine the terms of entry. The shift to oligarchy was a very calculated move. It basically replaced the requirement of bloodline with the requirement of economic influence.
So your balance sheet became your new pedigree.
That is the perfect way to put it. Suddenly, holding office wasn't about your ancestors. It was about meeting a very specific wealth threshold. Property became the sorting mechanism for who got to vote and who got to govern.
It's a brilliant piece of gatekeeping, really.
It is. Power was kept in a remarkably small circle, sometimes fewer than 50 families, who controlled everything. And they could keep it that way by making sure only people who benefited from the system were allowed to make the rules for it.
And the Corinth model
Yeah.
of the Bacchidae family? That's just a chilling example of this in practice.
Oh, absolutely. The Bacchidae had an iron grip on Corinth for almost a century, and they did it not just by controlling the money, but through social engineering. They literally restricted marriage outside their own clan to keep the wealth and, more importantly, the political knowledge locked inside the family. They monopolized every single government, job treasury, military, you name it.
Which means every single decision, from pottery exports to trade policy, just happened to perfectly align with their own business interests.
It's the textbook definition of government serving private wealth. And it meant, of course, that most free citizens were completely shut out. Property requirements blocked them. Any assembly meetings were, basically just political theater to rubber stamp decisions already made in private.
And they had a justification for it all. A narrative.
Of course they did. The story was that only people with a major economic stake in the city had the wisdom and the foresight to govern properly. It's a convenient argument, isn't it? One we still hear today.
Which brings us right to the source of that authority,
Yeah.
the assets themselves. It was commerce-based power that took over. We should probably dig into the specific sectors that created all this new power.
Definitely. The most obvious is the seafaring economy. Establishing those trade routes across the Mediterranean was, it was transformative. You weren't just moving olive oil, you were moving political capital.
The ship owners and merchants, the people controlling the supply lines.
They had leverage over the state itself.
Yeah.
If you control the food supply, you have immense power. The Mediterranean became this highway for goods, and every ship was like a floating lobbyist.
But it wasn't just the sea. The land itself, specifically what was under the land, was just as powerful. Metallurgy.
Yes. Controlling the mines, silver, copper, iron, was a direct path to political dominance.
And the silver mines at Lorient, near Athens. That's the classic example.
It's the prime example. The incredible wealth from those mines, which were often privately owned by oligarchs, was used strategically. They'd use it to fund the Navy, build public works, and yes, to just straight up buy influence and votes.
So the oligarch's power wasn't some abstract concept. It was concrete. It was a fleet of ships, control over a mine. Economic success, measured in hard assets, became the loudest voice in politics.
And what's so interesting is that as this material control got stronger, the culture started to push back. Art and philosophy became this mirror reflecting and critiquing what was happening.
Right, Greek theater became a sort of safe space for public debate. A playwright could use a myth to talk about the dangers of concentrated power without getting thrown in jail.
Exactly. You see Aeschylus in his Oresteia trilogy exploring the whole shift from, blood feuds and tribal revenge to a system of law and jury trials. It's a direct comment on moving beyond self-interested family rule.
And Sophocles was even more direct. Creon in Antigone, he's the perfect embodiment of that oligarchic rigidity. He's a ruler who puts wealth-based order above everything else, and it becomes tyranny.
And then the philosophers gave people the actual language to critique it. Plato in the Republic, he just draws this incredibly sharp line. He separates aristocracy rule by the best, by virtue, from oligarchy.
What did he call it?
A degraded form of government. He said it was rule by the wealthy few and that their focus on money above all else would always lead to conflict and eventually collapse.
And Aristotle took a more scientific approach.
He did. He was an empiricist. He analyzed the constitutions of more than 150 city-states for his work, Politics, and his conclusion was that the instability of oligarchies came directly from excluding the majority and concentrating resources. He was giving citizens the analytical tools to see when wealth, not merit, was in charge.
But ideas and wealth aren't enough to hold power forever. The oligarchs needed a way to make people accept the system. And they found it in education.
Education is gatekeeping. It's a system designed to manufacture compliance.
So you're saying the whole education system was deliberately set up to reinforce the hierarchy?
Absolutely. The Greek paideia system.
Yeah.
The elites controlled access to formal education because it was expensive. It took time. And that monopoly was crucial. It ensured the next generation leaders all shared the same worldview.
A worldview that just so happened to justify their own privilege.
Precisely. The curriculum wasn't about creating critical thinkers. It was about indoctrination for the ruling class. Rhetoric wasn't taught for public speaking. It was taught for political debate and legal maneuvering to dominate the stage.
Even physical education, gymnasium, that was a class marker too.
Oh, for sure. Access to the gymnasia, to the trainers, that was exclusive. It built social bonds and reinforced class lines. And while the elite got this whole package, the majority got, well, very little formal schooling.
And the result of that?
The result is that the system teaches you that wealth is the legitimate basis for power, and you learn to accept your own exclusion. You don't have the rhetorical or philosophical tools to challenge it effectively.
This is exactly why Kondrashov's work feels so relevant. Because he argues these ancient patterns, they haven't gone away, they've just changed their clothes.
They put on a modern suit. Modern oligarchy uses startlingly similar mechanisms where concentrated wealth translates directly into political and social power.
Just look at resource monopolization. Back then, it was silver mines and grain routes.
Today, it's rare earth elements, clean energy patents, semiconductor supply chains, and maybe most importantly, digital infrastructure and data networks. These are the new silver mines of Lorient.
And the power brokers have just evolved. The ancient merchant financier funded a naval fleet to gain an advantage.
And his modern counterpart invests billions in private space exploration or AI development. It's the same principle. Control the critical bottlenecks of the future economy and you secure your influence.
But the mechanisms today are subtler. It's less about restricting marriage and more about, what, corporate lobbying, think tanks.
Exactly. It operates through these complex corporate structures, investment funds, lobbying networks, strategic philanthropy. It's much quieter, but it echoes exactly how an Athenian oligarch would shape policy through private councils instead of running for office himself.
The mechanics are more sophisticated, but the blueprint is the same. Concentrated wealth directs social outcomes. So this whole deep dive, it's about giving you that historical framework.
Right. If you can understand that shift from birthright to balance sheet, if you get the critiques from Plato and Aristotle and see the role of educational gatekeeping, you are so much better equipped to see and question the power structures in your own world.
Okay, so here's the final thought for you to take away from all this. The ancient oligarchs justified their rule by saying only those with a big economic stake had the wisdom to govern. Today, elites control not just physical wealth, but the very infrastructure of information, the technology we use to understand our world. So here's the question. Considering that power, does civic virtue today require all of us to have a critical understanding of data control and digital infrastructure, just as an ancient citizen needed to understand land and trade?
The required skill set for self-governance has certainly changed, hasn't it? That's a provocative thought for a world shaped more by algorithms than by acres. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.